Hello and welcome everyone to episode number 47 at the Indie Football Podcast. It's been heavy duty at the Indie Football Podcast recently. The episodes are coming thick and fast, and today with us, we are very glad to have with us Ankit from Almighty Blues. He's doing a great work with his social media in terms of making content. You should probably also check out his Instagram page. Thank you, Ankit, for taking out the time. How are you feeling tonight?
Absolutely, my pleasure. Firstly, to come. I know we've been in touch for a while, but for me, it's always an excuse when we're talking about sports and specifically football. You just need to basically, ping me and I'm there. I know that's how I love talking about football. Yes, I know. Again, kind of will be speaking about a lot of things, but for me, football comes first, and obviously then the club love comes later. But both are equally important. So things aren't going well on a personal front when you talk about club level, but
Yeah.
generally speaking, football is so much happening. Like there isn't a day without action in football.
Absolutely. And Anukar sir, I'm sure we'll remember the episodes we did with Anirudh. He was probably our first Chelsea fan on our podcast. Then we've had a few, but it's always good to have someone represent the Blues at the Indie Football Podcast, right?
Yeah, man, we had David as well. And like Ankit is someone who I've had, on my to-do list for our podcast guests for a long, long time. Like I've been pretty active on Twitter. You have been there too. And, we have been seeing how Ankit has been so active on Twitter in expressing his views. And like there was this story sometime back, which will always remember Ankit, discussing about, in which he had talked about that there were trolls who had been, talking rough about him, but still how he believed in himself, and look how amazing of a content creator he is now. And I think we can all just take inspiration from how good a job he has done for football in this country. And it's a pleasure having him on board. And all I can say to him is welcome to the Indie Football Podcast, Ankit. It's
Yeah, and
great having you
probably
on board.
similar to how Chelsea felt for the entire Everton game last weekend, where they were leading 2-1 till the time Everton put at that equalizer the last moment. Probably it's indicative of how Ankit just went off our call in a
And back with the bang. No, no. So the thing is, see, that is what I wanted to show. This is what football is. It's all about ups and downs, and that's what we love. Expect the unexpected. That's what you get on Almighty Will. See, that's what you get on football. So back
yeah,
again. But yeah,
absolutely.
again, always it's my pleasure to come and speak to you guys, and of course any platform. But you guys, have been very respectful. So looking forward to it. So let's go.
Yeah, so I think it'll be a great starting point to talk about what were your earliest years of following football and what made you lay your loyalties towards Chelsea, and probably something about those beautiful jerseys in in your background as well.
Thanks a lot. I really appreciate that because yes, there's an actual correction that I have. Again, I would love to kind of buy as much as I can and get just collect and maybe from players or beat from anywhere. But honest truth is, again, if you actually follow my channel, that's something that I've shared a lot. See, for me, football comes first. So the reason I say that is because, like, again, back in the 90s, you didn't have so much exposure in India to football. I am lucky enough to be from a school which actually, supported a lot of sports, football in particular as well, and of course cricket as well because I do have a cricket channel. So these are the two kind of things that I had an affinity from right from the school days. Like, if you actually put me into perspective, I think the uh, real exposure to football came from the World Cups, from the Euros. I think 94 World Cup, again, I was literally a kid and I remember 94 World Cup. Maradona was huge, right? And
Yeah.
Roberto Baggio was also huge. And that guy, again, Maradona story about him first being in the team and then obviously, being called for what he did, right? And then he was out. Before that, even Ruud Gullit. So these are three stars. Ruud Gullit walked out of the tournament one night before the Dutch actually, started the campaign. That was huge. He was the
Oh.
captain of the Dutch team, and so it
Oh,
was all in the newspapers. Then Roberto Baggio, obviously Italian star, and ironically, he was the one who missed that penalty. So it kind
Yeah.
of
Yes.
gained momentum. I again maybe it was just that I started getting into my senses when I was a kid, and I saw a lot of say chewing gum companies, be it some trump card companies, all those things, using a lot of this football propaganda. And they came up with these cards, which we used to kind of just as in fight for when we were kids. And I remember those Roberto Baggio cards that I had. I know the Dutch team, and as well as Maradona cards I had. So that's the first
Right.
remembrance that I have, that how I got exposed to football. Apart from obviously in my school, it was kind of very well say encouraged. But then came the 98 World Cup, which was actually my full World Cup that I fully followed. So to be honest, it was the 94 World Cup, 96 Euros, 98 World Cup, and 2000 Euros, which are actually the main, say, the catalyst for me, following football. Meanwhile, obviously, there was FIFA. So FIFA had come about. 98 FIFA is something that I don't know,
FIFA
as in
98 was brilliant. I'm so sorry to
Yeah.
intervene
brilliant.
here,
As
but
in,
it was
I
brilliant.
trust me, I upgraded my laptop recently, and I wanted to kind of bring it over to the new laptop, but unfortunately it's not compatible. I'm like, oh no, man, I lost it. As in 98 FIFA, I've played for years together, trust me on that. And
I can.
again, yeah, that was the exposure, right? But I think as a Chelsea fan, because you're putting me in spot before that, even like you can see behind me, there's Kaka, and I'm actually having a very big, not a soft corner, big soft corner for AC Milan. AC Milan was
Yeah.
actually my first love. For people, Chelsea fans out there watching this, might be actually, giving me a lot of curse, but that's how it was. Serie A was much more, say, accessible when you are trying to watch it on
Hmm.
TV. It wasn't Premier League in the late 90s. And again, Milan was a rich club, and of course, Milan, Serie A generally was rich. And Milan was a
Yes.
great team. Kaká, Shevchenko, Maldini, Cafu. I was like, in fact, even the Roberto Baggio kind of thing for Italian football, I started watching Serie A. That's how it came about. But then came obviously the Champions League. 99 Manchester United did that thing over Bayern Munich, and then I'm like, okay, I watched that final. The following season I decided, okay, this time I have to watch it, because that was wow, that was some spectacle that comeback that Manchester United make. Luckily,
Right.
again, I have to say, with all due respect, I did not become a Manchester United fan. Again, a great club at that. But the reason I say that is because of the fact that I had a Dutch connection with Ruud Gullit of the kind. So I started following them, plus a little bit of, say, the Italian connection with the Serie A. So Zola and Ruud Gullit were kind of reasons for me starting off, because they were in Chelsea. So I kind of started following Chelsea during the late 90s, and that's how it came about. And Zola was magic. For people who have not watched him live, as again, I watched only a
Yeah.
couple of years of him, and towards the end, but he was brilliant. But I think the big change which like took it to the next level in terms of a fan, and for not just me, for many of them in India, I'm pretty sure, is the 2002 World Cup being in Asia. As in, the
Yeah.
coverage was next level. It was next level. And I remember Kaka played about 25 minutes in that World Cup, and that 25 minutes, I'm like, okay, I'm falling in love with this guy. Okay, that's how it was. But yeah, obviously the Chelsea club football continued with us actually
Yeah.
fighting, winning a couple of cups in 2000, etc. So those things continued. And then obviously the
The
huge change, which
2012 Champions League final,
yeah,
right?
no, even before that, I think the huge change was, I think the which changed football generally. I feel not just English football, generally football, with Roman Abramovich coming into Chelsea. I think that changed everything. The way
Hmm.
that clubs were, dealing with things not on a long term but also on a short term basis, bit of both. And Roman Abramovich kind of changed football. Not just him, Jose Mourinho, the way he came, the special one with that arrogance from Porto, the guy who came here with again here he keeps on going coming. But yeah, and one more name I have to take, because you're asking me about it. So I don't know if you can see at the corner of my screen, I'm a Dutch fan, like I always said. But Ian
Yeah.
Robin like really took it to the next
Uh,
level for me. So for me,
Definitely.
Robin, Terry, and Kaka. I know Lampard. Sorry, I missed you out of the jerseys that I have behind me. So these three are really which kind of define me as a football fan. The reason I kind of get goosebumps is because of these three guys. Why it started.
Right.
Kaka,
Yeah.
probably
True.
Kaká just about first, along with Terry, and then Robin. But eventually, I think these three, and of course Jose Mourinho, the special one. And again, like so much success you see, and then so many failures as well. Like you're buying
Mm.
things, and so much of, as in maybe I'm just a rebel, maybe I'm like between 2000 2005 we didn't win anything, and all my friends used to tease me being Liverpool, Arsenal, Man United supporters, whom I love, and again those are my friends, and they will be, and I cover content for them as well. But to be honest, what
Yeah.
2012, like you said, right? That was the like ultimate thing. That okay, fine. As in, again,
Drogba.
this is something for
Absolutely.
life.
I
It
feel
will stay.
that's I feel that's a really enviable collection back there, Anukar sir.
Yeah.
Won't you agree? But two, three things that I have to, point out from whatever Ankit just shared, and it's not to make Ankit feel any old, but the fact that he has mentioned about the 1998 World Cups, the 2002 World Cups, the kind of impact it had for generally the Indian audience. Like, I was probably not even born during the 98 World Cup, and that I think goes for Anukar sir as well. But
Yeah,
this is
I've been reborn, by the way. Huh? That was
yeah.
my earlier life.
But but yeah, I feel going picking up from the jerseys that Ankit has in his background, certain individuals have really played a probably left an indelible mark for many Indian fans supporting any club. Like, for example, I know how Steven Gerrard is at the
Yeah,
heart of all Liverpool fans, But
absolutely.
then, Anukar sir, won't you agree that India as a country buys in a lot into the idol worship thing? A lot of it we have seen in cricket, but also in football. If you ask, many of them follow a particular club or team mainly because one player that they loved in childhood, and that's been the love of their life ever since, right?
Yeah,
Right.
I
Yeah,
think
it's definitely that. I think Anukash. I don't know. So who was that? Steven Gerrard. I'm assuming was
Yeah,
the person who kind
absolutely.
of.
definitely, definitely. I'll tell you a thing. I think I was telling Doipan about this a few days back. The thing is that before every Liverpool match, I'd go down to the Steven Gerrard poster in my room, and I legit bow down to it, and I think and I ask Gerrard, कि, please आज जिता देना. ठीक है, I genuinely do that. Sometimes Gerrard, sometimes Firmino nowadays. But yeah, see, I think. A very big reason for starting the indie football podcast with Doi Payan, I mean, suggesting the idea. Right now, I'll be honest, is because I wanted to talk a lot about Gerard. I remember back in school, my English teacher once gave us the topic to write about our favorite hero. And by the time she was done explaining, I had written 3 pages. But then she changed the topic, and I was so upset. I was so upset that day. But yeah, whatever you said, Ankit, actually, it brought a lot of emotions, man. I'll tell you why. Because you talked about FIFA 98. An interesting tale with it is that with FIFA 98, there was this mode in which you could play in an indoor stadium. I'm sure Ankit might remember. Right. Now, it was an indoor wooden stadium. And the thing is that with time, I used to play it a lot and I got used to it. So I started finding it a bit easy. So at the start of the game, I used to make sure to get 2 players sent off from my team by tackling the goalkeeper, which you I don't think can do in the FIFA versions nowadays. So I used to play with 2 footballers, 2 against 3 or 4, I think it was, in those indoor setup and in that indoor stadium. I think it was so much fun that you had to plan to pass from the corner, hitting the boundaries and all, and the ball couldn't go out. So there were a lot of dynamics associated with it. So of course that brought a lot of memories. And I mean, Ankit, our podcast has seen earthquakes in the last episode and power cuts in this episode. So I'm sure these are a lot of experiences that we are,
Yeah, yeah. That's
subjecting
part
There's
of life,
ourselves
and
to.
football is part of life. That's how
there's
football fans are, right?
Absolutely,
Yeah.
and it's being a strong shot of nostalgia to begin a large part of this episode. And now I'm going to bring all of you to the contemporary world of football, where a lot is happening for Chelsea. I think, even though Chelsea's on-ground performance has not been great, but there's always something to talk about if you are a Chelsea fan. Like, for example, Ankit, I will come and ask you about Graham Potter. I remember when he was appointed as the manager for Chelsea. Chelsea was going through a very turbulent phase of changing managers very frequently, or at least more frequently than most other clubs would probably prefer. And he had come in with a very fine record with Brighton, and everyone did appreciate the managerial acumen for him. And the start for him, now it's been 6 months almost into his tenure.
Yes.
And I feel, before I go and ask you, I feel every manager I've read certain books on football. I read about Arsene Wenger, and I read a bit about the Alex Ferguson book we have over here. I feel a manager needs to be given more time. As a Chelsea fan, how do you rate what Graham Potter has done so far, and do you think there are positive aspects to be seen in the future regarding it?
Yeah. Again, I was maybe one in the minority when Graham Potter was appointed. I took it with a pinch of salt, and I was like, the jury's out because
Yeah.
As in, here as a manager, again, we cannot disregard the fact that we let go a manager again because of things didn't work out between the owners, etc. That he just won us the Club World Cup, which we hadn't won. He won us the Super Cup. He won us the Champions League. Not just that, the way that he turned our, whatever the future, the current, it looked like okay, we have become from boys to men. But again, there were a lot of off field issues. I know that with Tuchel. Again, Graham Potter came in. The only reason I'm saying that I took it with a pinch of salt or the jury is out because as much as Graham Potter is a great tactician and he seems to be definitely one for the long term for any club. Again, right now I hope it's Chelsea, but at the
Yes.
same time this is someone who hadn't had any experience in terms of the top level of football, with the kind of footballers you're dealing with, the size of squad that you're dealing with the size of the budget you're dealing with. So those are
Hmm.
things. It's very easy, like again we were talking about FIFA earlier in the stream, right? See, in FIFA, you have money, you kind of use it. Don't use it is up to you. That's just totally fine. Okay, you can have a way around it. Real life is totally different in terms of football, how it works. It's not like if you're given more money, sometimes it's a bigger of a problem than if you actually don't have money. So that's something that I clearly saw that that could be a problem. But he started off well. I agree that he started off well, and that's something that we need to keep going. Again, his to his bad luck, it's about our medical department also having changes. A lot of changes are happening. Of those, Chelsea were going through the toughest phase in the last 12 months, and people tend to forget that part, right? As a club, and again, lucky enough to see about 25 years of Chelsea, I can clearly say this has been the toughest. Even before Roman brought, this has been the toughest phase. The last 12 months off field, but the World Cup. Now, the World Cup was an issue. Why? Because we've had so many, say, senior players who were kind of going to the national, teams before the World Cup. It was clear that okay, they had their priorities correct, and again, a lot of clubs had that issue. Now, after the World Cup, again that thing came about because they were coming with baggages. Now, that period for Graham Potter was very crucial. Did he miss that period of just gelling with the squad better, making sure each and every player is having that chemistry? And then we had the January transfer window, and we spent great. Big up to Burley and team, everyone. But the fact is, like, it's again not FIFA. It'll take time for things to gel, and that is why he
Hmm.
needs time. Now, problem
Right.
is, while we give him time, and again, I would love to be proven wrong and say that okay, Graham Potter becomes the future manager for years to come, and he is the next, say what Alex Ferguson was for Manchester United. I would love it at Chelsea, trust me. But again, the Chelsea DNA has been, and it has been built over 2 decades, not just basically a few years, that we, no matter what change we have, we keep winning. We have a winning mentality, and that is
Abs-
Right.
something that no matter what, you have to not give up that. For me, there were two three very, as in examples, I give you one for sure. The Man City FA Cup game, yes, we had players injured, about 9 or 10 or 11 of them were injured. But again, to go back to the same mistakes that he did while we were eliminated against Man City in the Carabao Cup, was something that I would not expect from a Graham Potter who knows Man City, who knows English football. Again, time and again, every game he's making the same mistakes about the substitutions, the personal picks, off-field issues like our picks in terms of not picking Aubameyang in the UCL squad. Again, he's not great right now. What he was in Dortmund and Arsenal, Aubameyang, but still good enough to be a second striker because we don't have a second striker in the squad. Broya is
yeah.
injured for a long time, right? David Datter Fofana is not a Graham Potter signing. So those are things which are very questionable for any person who follows football, even for a few years. Leave apart Graham Potter, who is an expert. But again, these are things that needs to be overlooked when you are trying to build a long-term identity or rebuild a long-term identity. Is this identity
Hmm.
coming? Yes, it's coming to fruition, but again, it's like one step ahead, 2 steps back is what we are seeing. Uh, right now, as we speak, we are still 10th. This is not Chelsea Football Club. In the last 25 years, I remember only the second time that I'm seeing my club being 10th. Yes, there's a, as I said, the most difficult period of the last 12 months. But no matter what, we've had such difficult phases. I remember this can be termed to a similar phase when Jose Mourinho in 2007 went, and that was the golden period of Chelsea, in my opinion, when
True.
an Abraham Grant came in, then a Felipe Scolari came in, then a Goose Hiddink came in. Yes, again, every day is not a Sunday, things change, but we need to basically, while trying to rebuild an identity, we cannot give away the fact that we need to go in every game winning no matter what. And if we don't perform well, the manager needs to be strong enough to criticize the players. He needs to be strong enough to make certain decisions. He cannot make everyone happy.
Absolutely.
Yes, it's better, but not exactly what I expect. And this is the honest truth from a Chelsea
And
fan.
that's interesting. Like Anukash, I'm going to go one step further and ask you about the players in specifically, because we can probably talk about Enzo Fernandez, the World Cup winning Argentine who has recently joined Chelsea. We can probably talk about Mikhail Mudryk, the Ukrainian footballer who was signed for 100 million, and when he was signed, most of the people did not even know who he is, where his personal previous football exploits with. So, as someone who is not a Chelsea fan, how do you view all these signings made by Chelsea, and what do you think it exactly tells about the current situation of the Chelsea Football Club?
To be very honest, that as a person, I don't really like the feelings of jealousy and envy. But as a football fan, I see it with a lot of jealousy and envy. Whenever I see, whenever I remember the January transfer window, even in the summer, whenever I used to check Twitter, especially in January, I mean every week Chelsea was signing a new player, and here I was begging on my knees, asking Liverpool to buy a freaking midfielder. And here Chelsea was getting Enzo, Chelsea was getting Mudryk, Chelsea was getting Fofana, Chelsea was getting
All
anything and
players,
everything on this planet.
yeah,
And yeah, and the thought in my head was that seriously, like where how is this even possible? How are they getting everyone? And the thing is, like Liverpool was equally struggling at that point of time. I'm glad they have kind of slightly picked up relatively, but Liverpool and Chelsea were almost at ninth and tenth at that point of time, especially when they had that draw, that stalemate, which was really lifeless. And I was thinking at least Chelsea fans can celebrate the signings that they are having. We have nothing to celebrate about. So, and but on a serious note, here's the deal. Like, I think I understand from a Chelsea fan's POV how they are still supportive of Graham Potter staying, and how they understand that the club is going through a period of transition, that there is a new ownership, that there are new ideas being put in the club, which will require a lot of those results, which might not be in their favor, but in the longer term, they might lead to fruition. And players like Mudryk, players like Enzo, players like Joao Felix, if they stay beyond this season, will bring in fruitful results, provided the fans can stick with them, and the manager is able to make the best out of them. Because I feel Chelsea, with the squad they have, the sky is the limit. All they need is chemistry on the pitch, and some good luck for them.
yeah,
Yeah, before we continue, I have to pitch in because again there was a comment
yeah,
made about
please,
Chelsea,
absolutely.
and I have to defend my club there again with all due respect. And I myself cover
Yeah,
for people watching. I cover content end to end, basically all top five leagues. I try to at least because
yeah,
having watched 25 years. By see when you say that Chelsea, how are we able to do that? Again, I have to put this facts right. The fact is basically that Roman Abramovich out of nowhere was Chelsea was under sanctions, right? We were under
yeah.
sanctions. Uh, until today, there is a debate that basically out of all the things and out of all the people, and if anyone here is telling me that anyone and everyone that is behind a club who has any money or a lot of money is very very clean as white, no, I would highly disagree.
Absolutely,
And I think Roman
absolutely.
Abramovich clearly got a raw deal. Chelsea as a club got a raw deal, that we were under sanctions compared to others, and Roman Abramovich actually wasn't directly at fault. He was in fact trying to be the maker out of everything. But anyway, those are things, and because of that, we kind of lost the history and the identity that we tried to create over 20 years. And again, a lot of clubs have spent. Tottenham spent loads of money when Gareth Bale was
Yeah,
spent.
yeah, yeah.
Liverpool spent loads of money. People tend to forget, with all due respect, that when Coutinho was sold, and again when Van Dijk and Alisson came in, Manchester United have been the highest spending club. We were actually in a transfer ban. Man City, with all due respect, was in a transfer ban. Right, but their transfer ban was revoked, whereas ours wasn't. We played with literally 8 kids on the park who had not seen a Premier League football, right? And we
Yeah.
finished top. So those are things which, in context, you have forgotten. See, as a football fan, I know I'm getting a little bit worked
Mhm.
up, but that's the reason, because these are things that
No, no.
we need to remember the context. The entire context is about what we were. It's just not about right
Mhm.
now.
Yeah,
When
absolutely.
Roman
Right,
Abramovich,
man.
even I'd like to complete this point, please. So Roman Abramovich, when he basically, went. he made sure, and thanks to him, that the debt was not there. So any new owner, when we are in a place where we literally lost half our backroom staff, right, be
Mhm.
it mutually or whatever the reasons, being Petrocek and Marina, the real brains, as in they have to overspend. They have to overspend, and
Right.
the book is balanced. So there is no other way than to basically beat and already in the trust the process. Arsenal were in year three of the trust the process. We were basically starting. Like Liverpool have been there in 7 years under Klopp, right? We have Man City so many under years under Pep. So we have to do more than that. So if the owners are doing that,
Yeah.
well and good. And even the players, right? Even the players, Mudrik, I would like to highly disagree that people did not know about him. As in, yes, of course, he was not, say, Mbappe anywhere close. I'm not trying to say that. But what I'm
Yeah,
saying
yeah,
is
the
here is,
Arsenal were all over him. Absolutely, like
yeah, I'm
he
not
was
even
a
going to
star
say
to
that
begin.
Arsenal are going, that's why Chelsea were going. No. People think that way. No. The reality is that Mudrik, for anyone who followed Shakhtar, anyone who saw the Champions League, he
Hmm.
actually tore apart
Lit it up
Real Madrid in two legs. Yes. And he actually
totally.
played all six matches. He was actually man of the match in a couple of them. Right. And I'm not going to claim that I watch every minute of Shakhtar. What I'm trying to say is here is the potential. So what Chelsea were doing is we were buying potential and we were investing. That is what Todd Bully. Again, it's a huge gamble. Of course, it's a huge gamble.
Yeah, yeah.
Enzo is not a huge gamble. Enzo has done that, been there, done that in Argentina, and Enzo has done that in Benfica in the Champions League, and is coming. In fact, Enzo, I would say, is right now, even on in terms of statistics, in terms of the results, in the horrible record that we've had over the last 2 3 months, Enzo still stands out as one of the best midfielders in
Hmm.
the Premier League. He
Absolutely.
Yeah.
actually does. So I think Mudrik, maybe Madueke, these are one, two of them for the future. Others are probably David Ator Fofana is not going to play in Chelsea anyway. He's going to be loaned out next season. Even this time we were trying. So the whole
Yeah.
idea is we are not building for right now in terms of what we bought. So people saying that okay, we bought how etc. That is something that we had to invest for the future because unfortunately we may not. There's a realistic possibility we may not be in the Champions League position come next year. So next
Yeah.
year we may not be able to attract the same names who potential could reach that potential next year, and that is why we went
True.
overboard. And because of the books getting balanced, I had to put in there. Sorry.
Yeah, no,
Actually,
that
yeah, yeah,
definitely makes a point.
absolutely. I agree with you on this. And the thing is, the point I was trying to make wasn't, see, when I said that in January, I felt that how are they doing this? I did not mean that how they're spending so much money. What I meant was that in January, usually clubs don't go out buying so many players, one. And the other point was the point which you said, I translate the same emotions because there was an article by Swiss Ramble, I'm sure you followed on Twitter too, which highlighted how Chelsea have been very smart because Chelsea tied Mudryk to an 8-year contract.
Yeah.
Now
Yeah.
now the fees will be paid every year as like 5 or 10 years, something like
Yeah,
that,
so the
along
amortization kind of balances the books. See, but that's
absolute.
the thing, right?
Huh.
For all those articles, I'm trying to say that
Hmm.
year is high risk, high reward. So basically, the more that we tie up a player for, that's basically a liability for Chelsea.
Yeah,
Why isn't it looked at that way? Like imagine a Kepa, for instance, right? Kepa was pathetic for a season and a half. Now is coming back to form, right? Now is really good.
yeah, absolute.
In fact,
Yeah.
he's come back to the Spain team for a reason. Now he is good, but he lost his total confidence, be it on pitch or off pitch, right? We had tied him
Hmm.
down for a 7.5 year deal as well. So that time we were really regretting. And same thing could be for Mudrik. Same thing would be for maybe a Badiashil, right? It's lucky that Badiashil and Enzo kind of people have really come up good as of now. Like in
True.
Mudrik, Abibi, you will say that, okay, there's the jury is out because the
Yeah.
Premier League is different. But we want to invest for the future. That's the whole idea. Now, problem here is are these Potter signings? Potter must have been asked, okay, are they good? Potter said, okay, why not get them on? But now that he's seen them in training, maybe he feels that they're not ready, and that is where I feel that I don't totally agree with all the spendings. Also, we should have probably balanced it. That part I agree with. Like we should have balanced with maybe a couple of them really experienced guys, a couple of them really youngsters. We bought is all youngsters. So I don't know
Totally.
how far we'll go, but hopefully it works out.
I
So
think Mudrik, with how he skinned Liverpool in the substitute experience, I think he will come good. Personally, I feel
Yeah,
that.
yeah, he's a good player. Like
Bec-
again,
yeah,
Champions League, you cannot just play that against Real Madrid if you're not a good player. It's just
absolutely.
that he needs the backing. Exactly.
yeah, I feel what I can probably speak for the 47, 48 odd episodes that we have done so far is that we have barely scratched surfaces, but I absolutely adored how Ankit was able to go right in, delve deep into whatever we had to say. But I've got one tactical question that I probably wouldn't have asked had you just skimmed through the surface and went away. Like, you mentioned how you are probably doubtful about these signings being Potter signings. So ideally, for being someone who knows very much about what has happened previously in Chelsea, and you mentioned about how different kinds of football that you follow as well. Uh, what do you think a football club needs to be more about when it comes to play new player signings? Is it more about the head coach's involvement, or is it more about the club's involvement?
I think, see, that is where a mistake was made by my club Chelsea in this regard. You know what we did is we appointed the director of football quite late. We waited, and Todd
Mhm.
Burley actually took the job himself for the timing,
Yeah,
the post himself.
Yeah.
While there was actually, and come on, and the guy is like, with all due respect, I know he's a brilliant billionaire, and like I think Anuka mentioned about that. At the end of the day, that smartness comes because of the fact that he's a billionaire and he's used his smartness elsewhere. But football is
Right.
different. Like, you need to know that European football, especially, so that part is difficult. So for me, you either say that, like say Alex Ferguson or Arsene Wenger, those times are gone. I know they kind of had a control over the club, and that is something that I think you either give that to the manager. You just don't call him a chief coach, or you bring in a director along with the new coach. That's what the mistake we made, because here we let Czech and Marina go, and we should have made a appointment like right away after speaking. And again, I genuinely believe the entire appointment of Graham Potter happened a bit too quick. That was my
yeah,
personal
Hmm.
feeling at the time. Like, I'm not trying to say that he's not the right man or something like that. It's just that there was no hasty necessity for us to go with certain things, with Todd Bully taking on things, going and having a meal with the Barca representatives. You know what I mean? So those are
yeah,
things that could have been handled better. But again, it was a World Cup season, remember, and that is where all your focus of all basically national team coaches and administrators, everyone is in that. So maybe they were not available to speak, is what I'm assuming, along with Marina Czech not being there. But usually speaking, for a club, it's important that you identify whether the manager is going to be the making all the calls, the final call, or you appoint a second person, like, along with the manager. I think somewhere in between is what we try to do, and that is why we are seeing the last 2 3 months almost like being reworked upon again and again.
Hmm.
Oh, yeah. I feel how we are following a pretty special timeline across this episode, where we started off by speaking about what happened 20 years ago. It was the all nostalgia, and then we are currently speaking about, we have really delved deeper into what's happening currently. And before we wrap up this episode, I cannot help but speak about, take both of your thoughts about the upcoming Champions League fixture between and Chelsea, Real Madrid and Chelsea. Just before this recording this episode, Ankit did mention about how everyone loses to Real Madrid at some point of time, and yeah, I mean, it's also noteworthy to highlight how Chelsea is building for the future, and I absolutely buy into the perspectives put forward by Ankit. But Anukash, then I'll come to you first about this Real Madrid Chelsea match. Not that it's because your co-host is a Real Madrid fan, but don't you think that at the moment it's a bit skewed towards Real winning that fixture?
See, for me, I will try to, shadow my sadness by saying I will get to sleep on Tuesday and Wednesday nights, unlike you
Yeah,
people. है ना? But yeah, on a serious note, see, of course, Real had the upper hand. There are no two ways about that. But again, as I said before, Chelsea, with the signings they have made, with the players they have everything in their squad to actually challenge Real. I cannot say that if they will be able to beat them or they will be able to, because I think Chelsea can. Honestly, I feel, and I have a reason why I say that. Because you look at that midfield, you look at that attack, you look at that defense. Chelsea have players. Chelsea have quality players. I think with the signing of Joao Felix has really helped them. I think that has added a different dimension. And I certainly feel that Chelsea can really go neck to neck with Real, because I think we saw against Dortmund how Chelsea season isn't really down and out. Chelsea can still come back and salvage something really good out of the season. And we have seen in the past how Chelsea at times have finished even fifth in the Premier League season, but have won the Champions League in the same season. So Chelsea can do that. Chelsea can surprise you. And But again, like I would say, on paper and with the form Real have shown over the last decade, they start as the favorites. But Chelsea are no small dark horses. They start as strong dark horses, in my opinion.
Yeah, and Ankit, I'm not gonna ask you something just over the top and something broad. So I am gonna probably put you in a bit of a spot and tell you, like, I don't know which of the legs is gonna happen first, whether it's in the Santiago
Yeah.
Bernabeu or
So first
it's
it says the Santiago Bernabeu and Chelsea are playing Stamford Bridge, the return leg, which helps. But there's a caveat, right? We have about 7, 8 players on yellow,
yeah,
including the
absolutely.
three top
So
ones.
the first match being in Bernabeu, I'm gonna ask you, what are the signs? Suppose you are standing there in the sidelines, two, three probably indications or two, three movements in the first half of the first leg that you feel that would probably inspire a bit of confidence in the inside the Chelsea fan in you, that probably we could stage an upset from here. So what are those two, three things you would like to see in the first half?
Yeah. So first thing is like 9 out of 10 times our attacks come on the right hand side, especially when Reece James plays, and when actually a proper attack goes on the left hand side, I know that okay, fine, we are actually much more confident than usual. So actually, that's a good sign, and which is a very untold thing about Chelsea. And glad that you asked that question.
Yeah.
The second thing I would definitely say that simple as that, just scoring a goal, even if it's a 1-0 or a 1-all, I think I would take that because as much as we have looked good with Felix being there, Felix is one of the as in people who have not been able to score as many goals as what he should have, but he's been brilliant. I know that.
I
So
can't
I
forget
would,
his debut match for Chelsea, man. That was a swagger move.
he was superb for about half an hour, and then wow, that's what it was. So see, that's what Chelsea. So I always have one thing in my streams. I don't know if you guys watch it, but I always say every match for Chelsea gives you some drama. There's never a boring match. I know Liverpool, Chelsea would argue, but there also Modric inspiration moment was there against Milner. I remember. So
Yeah.
those are
Yeah,
things. Every match has something or other. You at least get something bad or good to speak about, and that's what I think has happened. But again, coming back to the points, I think just a goal. A goal at the Bernabeu again. Last season we were almost there. Remember, we were one of the rare teams who actually beat them at the Bernabeu in the UCL, but we couldn't get through still because of that handball to Alonso decision. But last season also it was the quarterfinals, right? And again, year before, you remember that we went through again because, but that was it was not Bernabeu. It was the COVID time. So for me, it's all about that leadership element. The third point is what I'm saying. Again, Kovacic element, where if he's in his element, I can see us doing well because he knows Real Madrid. He knows how things are. Then Thiago Silva, I hope he's fit. I think the leadership, if I'm seeing enough, voices on the pitch, and that'll tell me okay on touchline that okay, fine, we have something that we can hold on to. Because again, it's not easy coming from the Santiago Bernabeu with just maybe a draw or a victory, right? It's really difficult. Come on, so that's something that these are three things which are very crucial for us, kind of getting towards that victory or at least a draw in the first leg. But again, that yellow cards, that's a real caveat, along with Man City versus Bayern already, there, which is going to be very, very difficult. But again, never say never. Like Anukash said, we have a chance, but I've given myself 10%, but 10% is good enough for us to go through and win the Champions League. Why not?
Yeah, I mean, I think the past 38 minutes or so has been a proper strategy clinic from Ankit. And for me, who's started following football relatively late in his life, I have absolutely thoroughly enjoyed whatever he's had to share with us. And Anukash, Ankit's definitely left a mark in among all the other indie football podcast episodes that we have done so far, right?
yeah, definitely, man. And like as I mentioned before, like I had been wanting to have Ankit on our podcast for a long time, and like he has been, like I would like to tell our listeners that he has been very humble and always replying very promptly on the group, something we haven't really seen from a lot of our respected guests. And he has been kind enough to discuss and be active on the group also. So thank you, Ankit, for joining us. It's a pleasure having you, and we look forward to more associations with you in the future.
Same here, absolutely great talking about football. And again, I think football is about passion, and passion is football. So I think I live that, and I hope so everyone does as well. So let's hope for a brilliant end to the season.
Yeah,
Yeah.
plenty of content coming your way, guys, from the Indie Football Podcast, and as well, I haven't gone through a lot of what Al Ankit has put up in his Almighty Blues page, but after today's podcast, maybe he's gonna
Just
he's gonna
just
gain
just
a
about
loyal. Yeah.
850 videos in Almighty Blues and Almighty Sports was put together in about 600 days.
Oh wow, that's a
Wow.
solid number. That also almost puts a marker for even people like us who are.
And like I said, it covers all top five leagues. So as in, I have a quiz by the way for people who are interested. Definitely, that's something
Yeah,
fun
I
quiz.
see that. I see that on Instagram. Like Ankit puts up some really nice quiz questions in which, and sometimes it's so difficult to predict that he would tell you the country name, he would tell you an interesting incident, another interesting incident, and you would be thinking that hua kya? Like because in a lot of reels and in a lot of videos you just scroll through, but those are the ones which make you think, and you are like, yeah, ye nahi ho pa raha. So I mean, yeah, credit to him for that also.
Absolutely.
Thanks,
I
thanks,
feel
thanks.
I feel a lot of it is not only about just football but also everything that includes that pertains to it as in as much a manner as possible. So thank you Ankit. It's been a very enjoyable session for all of us, and I'm sure I'm
Same here.
speaking for our listeners as well. Looking forward to many more future collaborations with you. And yes, hope Chelsea performs well against Real Madrid but does not defeat them. On that
That's
note,
really big time. Anyway.
on that note, thank you guys. Good night. Take care.